Hey, it's Chuck. So we are all caught up on recruiting. We've covered every single angle we can about spring practice, and that's coming here in a couple days. So I thought today might be a fun day to talk about a topic that we're all super interested in, but is not going to affect us for quite a while. Matter of fact, not for another year. But I want to talk about the next year's quarterback battle because it's going to be epic, and why not? It's the offseason. There's nothing else to do. But for the sake of today's argument, do not get mad at me. We're just going to talk about Julian and Air. Not that I'm discounting anybody else, but just because it's very interesting that we've got two excellent 5-stars coming in the same class together. So we're going to go over some background on both of the guys, high school background, family background. We're going to play some tape of both of them, and we are going to talk about strengths, weaknesses, some scouting reports, and just kind of go over everything and maybe make a prediction in the end. And I'll be looking to hear yours too. Let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country. So on Saturday, one of Ohio State's two major NIL collectives, the 1870 Society, hosted the most outrageous event I have ever heard as far as access goes at Ohio State. At the Woody Hayes Athletic Center, they held an open house, and for $250 for one person or $500 for the family, that was 2 adults and 3 kids, you could go into the Woody, do a self-tour all around, trophy room, locker room, weight room, anywhere you wanted to go, meet the coaches and several players involved in the 1870. Now, I'm going to put the list of guys up here. And I have never in my life had an opportunity to just go hang out with these dudes. I'm talking autographs, talk, pictures, all of them. I mean, what an amazing thing to be able to take your kids to. So I'll make sure that we pump that word out as far as we can next year, because I hadn't even heard about this until I got a text on Thursday about it, and I was already committed to something. So, awesome event, but 11 Warriors was there, and they did a bunch of interviews. Now, even cooler, we never really hear from a lot of freshmen. Very rarely do we get, a whole lot of answers from freshmen. So one of the freshmen that talked was Noland. And the rumor mill always swirls around Ohio State. So I don't know if you've heard it lately, but there is rumor going around that Noland has been struggling to adapt to college, maybe struggling with the fact that Julian Sayin is on campus too, etc. I don't know. That's personal stuff, whether somebody's feeling like that or not. So I don't get into that kind of shit. But it was definitely a hard decision for Ryan Day to bring in Julian Sayin on top of Noland. We know that because he said so. He said it was tough. You talk to a kid, you're not going to take 2 quarterbacks, etc. At the end of the day, I got to do what's best for the team. And the head coach at Ohio State is not a job for the faint of heart. So after Coach Day says something like that publicly, I think it's natural for everyone to wonder, how is Air handling this? And of course they did. And that's how that speculation kind of starts. And again, who knows if there's truth to that? I don't. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's not. I'm not going to say that there is. I think it's personal, but I can tell you what I heard yesterday. And yesterday, we're going to go over what he said, but I think the important takeaway was his demeanor. And I think it was excellent. I think it's a kid who's locked in, ready to fight. And it just seems like a great overall kid, and he seems happy. He seemed incredibly happy. And obviously he's far from home. It's natural to have some, some bad times when you're first away from home and you're 18 years old. I don't know if anybody ever did that, but that's not an easy thing to do. So I would expect he would have some troubles. Is it more than anybody else? I don't know. But what he had to say and the way he had to say it, I'd encourage you to go watch the interview at 11 Warriors. It's not a very interesting interview, but his demeanor, I think, is pretty interesting, and I think it's pretty telling. Pardon me. So, Air said, he's building and progressing day by day. It's not just about him, it's about the team. Asked about his time so far on campus, he said it's been a blast. It's all about competitive nature. Here we teach competitive excellence. That's all we try to build on, and that's how we try to excel. On Chip Kelly, he said he's a great coach and he's a regular person. He's very smart. Asked about Chip's relationship with Coach Day, he said they're locked in. On his experiences so far in college, like the women's hoops game he was at, etc., he said it's been great. I love OSU. I love what it brings to the table. When the national championship is the goal, we grind each and every day to get to that goal. On Coach Mick, who's been getting them ready for winter workouts, Air said it's intense and I love it. Like the '06 Gators. The team, the atmosphere, the excitement, the competitive excellence. Nobody can mess with us in the country. I think it's hysterical that an 18-year-old kid is talking about the '06 Gators. On Will Howard, Dev, and Lincoln, teaching and bringing him along, he said, those are like my big brothers. They're going to make sure I'm on my P's and Q's just like they're on their P's and Q's. They're coming in being the best version of themselves, and it does nothing but help me be the best version of myself. On wide receivers, he said, Emeka, Innis, and Tate have shown me levels of the route tree, and I love it. Those guys are second to none. They're at Ohio State for a reason, and we bring the best receivers in the country. On J.J. Smith, he said he's very impressive. A lot of people have misconceptions about him, but he's a great person, and I love what he brings to the table, and I love what he brings to Ohio State. His impression of the other freshmen, he says they're here to play football, reach their goals, and get to the next level. I feel like coming to Ohio State, that's the best decision you could make in life. And what we want to know most about. What about Julian? Julian pushes me, and I push him. Noland told 11 Warriors. We were buddies at the Elite 11, where he came out and won it. But now we get to go put the pads on and whatnot. We're going to see each other the same way we saw each other at the Elite 11, but now we're teammates. We'll have to compete. We'll be teammates who will push each other every day. We will battle, and we will have competitive excellence towards each other. That's what being the best of buddies and true teammates mean. So, obviously, he said the right things. Now, it's easy to say the right things, but I think, again, his demeanor, when you hear him say those things, I don't think this 18-year-old's fooling me. And I'm telling you, he sounds like he's in a good headspace. So, watch the video, take of it what you will. But I think that Air's doing just fine. And I'm glad. And I love what he said there. Because, let's be honest, this kid knows, no, he did not come in with the intention of another 5-star in his class. But he sure knew doggone well that whether he knew who was on the roster ahead of him and thought, I can beat those dudes, he knew that somebody was coming up behind him that was also going to be an excellent quarterback. So he was coming in prepared to fight anybody who was in his way, and he's obviously confident in his ability, and why wouldn't he be? So let's dig into Noland. So he's an absolute phenom, playing 7A ball in the state of Georgia. Just about as tough of high school competition as you can get anywhere in the country. In 9th grade, he's identified by Alex Benson. This is a guy who runs a service called Born to Compete, and he is named the best young quarterback in the state of Georgia. This guy also identified Trevor Lawrence and a bunch of other awesome quarterbacks that came out of the state. So he gets him early, and Noland was his guy. And he was 15 years old. He had 5 offers as a freshman. Here's a quote from Benson in 2020. He played in numerous all-star games for Born to Compete. That's his organization. He wins with great ball placement, great anticipation, and he's a competitor down to his core. That's something that can be missed with a player his caliber. Aaron Noland is special. If there's such a thing as clutch, he has it. Game's on the line, he's got it. As a freshman at Langston Hughes High School, Aaron immediately started on a path to graduate early. What I find interesting is this has nothing to do with football. Aaron says, my older siblings all graduated from high school early. I had no choice but to graduate early and go to college. I started taking courses my freshman year to prepare for college. I even took some classes at Georgia Military College. The superintendent says to do this takes a tremendous amount of preparation from a family in his district. Noland's mother, Audrey, said, I pushed him, and he realized that it would help him more, so he was all for it. Now, that says a lot to me. This had nothing to do with football. You know, we hear these guys graduate high school early often. But, I mean, this dude's doing it just for the heck of it. I don't know. I sure didn't do that. That wasn't on my radar. So that's pretty awesome, and it sounds like it comes from a heck of a family, that his older siblings did it too. I don't know. It just seems like a heck of a family. I did not know that about him before I started digging into that, digging into some more of his background. So that, I think, is pretty awesome to hear. And you can kind of see it when you hear this kid talk. Just, you know, totally mature, awesome kid. And he definitely seems like he comes from a great family, and this kind of confirms it to me. That's pretty impressive. So his coach, what do you have to say? William Boone. Coaching him has been a delight. He brought us from unranked to the number 9 team in the country. Academically, he's always excelled. He's just a total package. The article then states that it was adversity that helped Noland persevere. This is from Noland's mom here. When he came to Langston Hughes in ninth grade, he didn't start. He was very humbled. He was being recruited by a bunch of private schools in the area. They wanted them to come play immediately for them. But I said, let's keep him at Langston. I said, we're going to stay here and we're going to compete. I think that's pertinent to our conversation. So kind of a similar situation went down in high school for him. So he's familiar with this and he's ready to roll. So his junior year, he passed for 4,000 yards and 55 touchdowns, which is just utterly insane. His team at Langston Hughes set an all-time Georgia record for points scored. Again, Georgia, one of the top states for high school football in the country. We all know that. And his team set the all-time scoring record, along with Jelani Thurman, our tight end. So pretty cool story there. Pardon me. He led that team at Langston Hughes his junior year, the record-setting year, to their first ever state championship in the hardest division in Georgia high school football, 7A, which is now not there anymore. It's now 6A. I think he played 6A in his senior, but 7A at the time was the toughest division. Even with a dip in production his senior year, he still finished his high school career with 10,000 yards and 132 touchdowns. Again, in the hardest division in one of the hardest states for high school football that there is. 10,000 yards and 130 touchdowns. And he didn't start his freshman year. Absolutely insane. Insane. So obviously, Air gets recruited by everybody. Well, Ryan Day in Ohio State had Dylan Raiola, the former number 1 quarterback in that class, committed to Ohio State. Well, Dylan Raiola decommits the first time. The first decommitment was from Ohio State. And after that, Ryan Day said, okay, let's kick the tires on Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin was a hard commit to Alabama, and he was not interested. Then Ryan Day goes to Air Noland, and he's able to woo him, bring him in. They got him. Secured the commitment from Noland, top 5 quarterback in the class pretty early. He was committed for a long time, and he was a perfect commit. There was absolutely no talk of him flipping, solid as they come. He even helped recruit other players. Did everything the coaches asked him to do. He graduated high school early. I mean, he talked about the coaching staff publicly. Like he hadn't even stepped foot on campus as a student, but he's talking about them like they're a family. Absolute dream commit, the perfect commit. You couldn't draw up any more perfect scenario than a guy who commits early, graduates early, helps recruit his class, never wavers. Perfect. And we're seeing it now with Tavian St. Clair, by the way, the quarterback commit in the next class from Belle Fountain, Ohio, who most likely will end up as a 5-star when it's all said and done. Same type of attitude. Doesn't even want to visit anybody else. He's taking ownership in the class along with Devin Sanchez, the 2 big dogs in the class. I mean, Noland did the same type of thing. Doesn't have quite as outgoing of a personality as Tavian, but he's the same type of kid. But with Noland, we got a 6'2", 195-pound, 5-star, top 5 quarterback in the country, a guy who knows how to win, with a great family, who's smart, humble, loyal, ridiculous stats, perfect pedigree. What did the scouts have to say about his game? He's got a quick release. He attacks all levels of the field. He's accurate. He fits it into small windows. 36-6 total record as a starter. He's quick to process. He loves to pick apart defenses from the pocket. He's a solid athlete who can move the chains. He's mature, business-like mindset. Arm strength is solid, not elite. A very safe bet with a very high floor. I love a safe bet with a high floor. That sounds great. Also, I feel like characterizing his athletic ability as solid athlete who can move the chains is underselling it a little bit. And I think if you watch him for, 45 seconds, you'll agree with me. That doesn't sound like he's a better athlete than that. Also, he ran track. I think his 100-meter time was like a 11.25 or something. So not a total burner, but the dude's a solid athlete for sure. He did also mention in that interview yesterday with 11 Warriors, they asked him, what do you want to improve in spring ball? And he said, my athleticism. I'm not sure quite what he meant by improve his athleticism, but the dude's an athlete. That's for sure. So our guy Air is committed. And all through last year, as we're going through the quarterback issues that we had, a whole lot of Buckeyes out there were saying, whatever, I'm not too worried about it because next year we got Aaron Noland coming in. And Coach Saban is 71. He doesn't make any promises he'll be there, but he has no plans to leave. If you know what you want, picking a college is not that difficult of a decision. That is a quote from Dan Sayin, father of number one quarterback recruit in the country, Julian Sayin. Now, at the time of Saban's retirement, Bill O'Brien had just joined Ryan Day as the Ohio State offensive coordinator. O'Brien had a previous relationship with the Sayins when he was at Alabama. And Julian Sayin was quick to hit the portal after Saban's retirement. And shortly after he hit the portal, we heard news that he was considering either Ohio State or USC. And shortly after those reports, well-respected Ohio State reporter Jeremy Birmingham said that the Buckeyes brass was in meetings at the Woody for 2 straight days discussing how they were going to go about this Julian Sayin situation. Were they going to bring him in? Were they going to say no thanks? We're square with Noland. We appreciate the offer. As we know, it was a really tough decision for Ryan Day. He struggled with it. He told us so much. But eventually, he decided his job's not for the faint of heart, and he has to do what he feels is best for the team ultimately. And he decided, Julian, come on in. My personal opinion here, Ryan Day does not make that move in the past. I think this is part of a little bit of an evolution of Ryan Day, and I did a little video about that based on this single move right here. It's a bit of a cutthroat move. It's a bit of an SEC-style move, the classic, SEC-style stuff we hear. Just the attitude of win at all costs. And it just doesn't feel like something he would have done in the past. I really don't think he would have. You can disagree with me on that. I'm happy to hear your opinion on it. But I really don't think he would have. But I know it was difficult for him, and he told us as much. It's a Lane Kiffin-style move. We'll call it that. So I'm sure that was a really tough conversation to have with the family as well. And it's not a common thing. Definitely not for Ohio State. We don't see it often. We don't see 2 quarterbacks in the same class often. To tell Aaron Noland that they were not only bringing in another quarterback but in his class, but another 5-star who's ranked higher than him, who they actually reached out to first after the Raiola commitment. But Julian was firmly entrenched at Alabama. And this isn't something that generally happens. 2 5-star quarterbacks in the same class. There's only 2 classes in the last 20 years at Ohio State that have had 2 quarterbacks in a class. And one of them is because Quinn Ewers reclassified after he committed. The other is Jack Miller, who was committed for a while, and then Ryan Day went and got C.J. Stroud, thankfully. But at the end of the day, Ryan Day decides we're bringing in Julian Sayin. Julian Sayin, the stud from Carlsbad, California. That's in the San Diego area. Julian started for the Carlsbad Lancers for 3 years after sitting behind his brother his freshman year. His brother is now the runner-up. He's a runner-up All-American at Penn. He's a quarterback for Penn. And he led the Quakers to an 8-2 record. He's also a stud. Rankings differ from place to place, but the 247 composite ranking has Julian as the number 1 quarterback in that class. I'll bring up Jeremy Birmingham again, who I know a lot of Buckeyes respect his opinion on these things, but he had Julian Sayin as his number 1 quarterback in the class long before he ever transferred and came here. Carlsbad plays in the Avocado League in the San Diego area. That's one of the top 10 leagues in the state of California, in the top division in the state of California. However, the competition is not as stout as the competition in 6A and 7A in Georgia. Julian was in 8th grade when he received his first scholarship. His quarterback coach, Jose Moeller, told The Athletic in an interview in 2023, "I worked with Bryce Young, but when Julian was a little kid, he had a firm eye on Bryce and the Elite 11 documentaries that he was in. Julian's dad, Dan, by the time Julian was 9, both of his sons were working with the quarterback coach, Moeller, who was a former quarterback at North Dakota State University. Moeller said they've been doing intense film study and breaking down film since Julian was 9 years old, watching corners, what they do, what their tells are, how they turn their feet, how they turn their jersey. Moeller says this kid knows what to look for. Julian has a tablet in high school where he keeps the notes of all of his defensive coordinators and the schemes that they run. Julian was mentored by former Broncos quarterback Brett Rippon. Moeller says, I think Julian is very attracted to being held accountable, and he thrives when other people become a little overwhelmed. He certainly thrived at the Elite 11 competition. As Air said earlier, I told you, winning the whole thing. He was also the Gatorade Player of the Year in California in 2023, and that is saying something from a state that produces a whole lot of high-level talent. Sayin finished his high school career with just under 8,000 yards, 94 total touchdowns, and only 10 picks. I think only 2 picks his senior season. And that was in 3 seasons of starting. So 3 seasons for both of them starting. Sayin, 8,000 yards, 94 touchdowns, not quite as gaudy stats as Air. He led Carlsbad Lancers to the league championship every single year he was the starter. At 6'1", 190, he's a little bit undersized from what you would want your typical prototype quarterback to be. But had he been a little bigger, I think that the hype around him coming out of high school would have been massive. Everybody knows Dylan Raiola's name. And I think that if Julian Sayin had been a little bigger, he would have been a much bigger nationwide star than Raiola was, because his talent, to me, is way better. So what are the scouts saying about him? Advanced feel for the position and an extremely high IQ. Underrated athlete, and that's for sure. The most ready-to-play quarterback in the class. The most refined and accurate passer in the class. Extremely quick release and compact motion. Outstanding overall mechanics. Hits receivers in stride. Great deep ball thrower. Excellent off-platform, and that's one of the things you'll notice when you watch his tape. I mean, the off-platform stuff, he kind of reminds you of Caleb Williams, some of the stuff he does. It's pretty sick. A surgical, decisive passer. This dude's accuracy is unreal. And this is one of the things that Air is credited with being excellent at. But when you see the difference between Air and Julian, you'll see for yourself. There's only one knock on him, and that's his physical traits. But when we talk about a college quarterback, 6'1", 190, without the jaw-dropping cannon arm is not something going to hold you back. Not at all. Many of the most electric and best quarterbacks we've ever seen in college are that size and don't possess that nasty cannon arm. That's an NFL type of thing that they got to worry about. So that's it for Julian Sayin. So what do we got here, guys? We're heading into next season, and we're just talking about these two dudes for the sake of today's argument. You've got 2 unbelievably talented guys, 5-star kids that everybody wanted in the same class. You got to think the loser's not sticking around. So they're both going for broke, trying to win the job. Now, when I watch these two, let me start with this. I'll say that when everybody was saying, not everybody, but a lot of folks, and I think some of them casual, I'm not concerned about next year because we got Air Noland coming in. I mean, 1, Air Noland was never coming in and starting as a freshman. And 2, we've seen a whole heck of a lot of quarterbacks with awesome high school film. And we're watching, a 2 to 4 second film on a guy out of his 4 years in high school. You can put together a pretty awesome highlight of anybody for 4 minutes if they play 3 or 4 years of high school football. Devin Brown's high school film is unworldly. It's unbelievable. It's fantastic. If you've never watched it, watch it. It's fun. Devin Brown in the scarlet and gray doesn't look like that guy. So, I think Air Noland also, hey, the nickname didn't hurt, right? We can say that. When your nickname is Air coming out of high school, it definitely gets the fans that are kind of casual and don't really pay any attention jazzed. But as I watch Air Noland's film, I see an awesome player. He's very, very, very good. And you look at him and you think, hey, I never like to jump to conclusions watching high school footage. But those stats his junior year, playing at the competition, the comments about being so clutch, he certainly seems like a guy who's going to be a very good college quarterback. But when I watch Julian Sayin, I see something special. It just looks different. It looks different to me. Everything he does looks special. The kid's throwing, not that you want him to do this, But this dude wants to win so bad. I mean, he's out here in his little highlight reel. He's throwing crackback blocks. I mean, he's putting his body on the line. Again, not something we want him to do. But and I'm not saying Air doesn't have that desire to win. But I mean, everything about him, the accuracy of his balls, how fast he gets the ball out, his feel for the pocket, and the off-platform stuff is. There's a couple in this little 4-minute reel I've been playing here. There's a couple of those off-platforms that are like that's not. You don't see that out of high school kids. I mean, this dude is so advanced, and we haven't even got into the fact that he essentially seems like some kind of quarterback savant. He was studying Bryce Young when he was young, watching his Elite 11 stuff, and this before the kid was in high school. He kept an iPad of the opposing coach's defensive schemes throughout high school. That doesn't seem right, man. That doesn't seem right. He started breaking down tape when he was 9. I think this dude's going to be amazing. I think he's going to be amazing. I think he's not only going to win the job, but I think he's going to start as a sophomore, second-year guy. And I think he's going to be amazing. And I think he's going to be amazing at a time where we're going to need amazing because of all the talent that we're losing and how young the team is going to be. And when you're young like that, having a sick quarterback is an awesome thing to have. So, and again, I'm just speaking hypothetically and talking about these two guys. And if we're just talking about these two guys, I love Air. I absolutely love him. I don't want it to come off like I don't. And I will certainly not be rooting for one of these guys over the other. But my impression just off watching, little 4-minute clips and kind of what we're hearing about Julian Sayin's, how savvy he is on the board and such, and reading about his background, I just think he's something different. I think he's something special, and I think we really lucked out here. Another lucked out with the Saban retirement. So I would love to hear what you guys think about it. As always, going to be exciting as hell, but we're a long ways away from that, and I just thought it might be fun to talk about today. It's Sunday. There's nothing else going on, and we're just waiting for spring ball to start. So that's what I got to say about it. What do you got to say about it? And let's not discount our hometown boy, Tavian, coming in, who Tavian, I think, could set the college football world on fire. However, I think Julian Sayin just may be generational. I'm telling you, I just love the kid. I just absolutely love him. That's my opinion. I'm probably wrong, as usual. And you know what? We're having fun. We're kicking it. We're fans. That's okay. No problem. But let me know what you think. Call me an idiot if you want. Only rude people do that. There's some rude comments. Follow me on Twitter at JuckOnBucks on Twitter. Thanks to our partner Homage for the sweet shirts. Softest stuff in the world. The one I'm wearing today is like 10 years old. It lasts forever. You get what you pay for. Everything's available now in the podcast version on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you can get podcasts. Show's growing really fast. I'm so grateful to you guys. But what I'm most grateful for is the interaction in the comments, because that's why I'm doing this. I don't have anybody in my family who will discuss this stuff with me in depth, and I started this to get involved with you guys. So let me know what's up in the comments. What do you think? Hit me up on Twitter. Let's wrap. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Juck on Bucks out.